What is poppin'? One Piece chapter 980 is out, and of course, we gotta talk about it because it was actually a really good chapter. Like, we got a lot of stuff in regards to it, but we really didn't go anywhere. So if you haven't read the chapter, I will be spoiling because I'm going into, some details about it, but we're not going to get too deep because we always wait for the translations on Sunday to kind of speculate even deeper. But without further ado, let's talk about One Piece chapter 980. So last chapter, the major issue people had was the cover page in regards to Pound and everything going on with that. So this chapter, I was actually looking forward to the continuation of that. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We see Lola and Gotti and Capone and Chiffon. I'm not sure if this is hinting towards Lola and Gotti possibly getting into something, but I don't care about that. I want to see how Pound reacts to Lola and Chiffon, or them seeing him in Dressrosa. I normally don't spend too much time on the cover page, but I felt like it was necessary based on last chapter and how much I went off on just Pound being alive. So yeah, that's that. Let's get to the chapter. So the chapter picked up right where we left off, where Luffy is upset at people actually wasting food. And to be honest, it got even worse because they were actually trying to have a food fight with the food they were eating. So Luffy, that pissed him off. And I know I'd mentioned before that this would be some development for Luffy if he continued and didn't mess up the plan, but that is the plan, for him to actually go berserk and create a distraction. So Luffy's actually doing what Law predicted he would do, and I was a bit thrown off because I thought Kid was gonna go forward again. For some reason, and it's based on how Oda has done things in the past, I thought it was just gonna be Luffy does something and Kid did something off screen, but he went on ahead. Just to continue his narrative of not getting behind Luffy without us actually seeing anything. Or was this chapter different? This chapter showed a different side of what Oda can show in regards to Kid, but we'll get to that. Luffy completely destroys the hall, and of course Zoro did get lost, right? But he heard the commotion and he comes over and he starts yelling at Luffy and telling him how he's messing things up. And Zoro is actually telling Luffy to keep it down while yelling at him, and Kid and Killer, they're just looking at him like, are you understanding that you're making this worse? That was actually a pretty funny moment in the chapter, but seeing Zoro is always cool, especially Zoro and Luffy in one spot, because recently, especially post time skip, there haven't been that many moments with them together. So I really enjoyed just seeing the duo. This chapter as well, it showed like Zoro and Luffy's ideals, they're kind of aligned, because Luffy mentioned Oshiruko and Zoro's just kind of like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to cut them to pieces, because they're reflecting on Tama, and I'm sure for Zoro, thinking of Yasu and the people of Abisu Town, how much they struggled and the food they were fed. A lot of things resonate with those two, so for them, it's always good to see them on the same page. In the midst of all of this going down, I think the star of this chapter is none other than Scratchmen Appu. Now, Appu is somebody that had been lurking in the shadows in regards to the story or Wano so far. Like, we've seen him, but he hasn't been around. We saw him when the party started or the festival started in Onigashima. Like, he just showed up out of nowhere, and we've all been wondering, what is Appu going to do? Once we got to Onigashima, we saw Appu as the actual DJ. Is Appu going to have any importance going forward? Is he just going to DJ the entire time? Of course, we know he'd get involved, but I assume that at some point, Appu would run into Kid and Kid would get his revenge on Appu, because this has been built up for several chapters, but we'll talk about that on Sunday. However, with Appu, once he first showed, right, he had a reaction to Luffy, like thinking he was in Udon prison, as if he was somewhat scared. I couldn't have been more wrong about Appu. Before talking about what Appu did to Zoro and Luffy, Appu and Queen's interactions, hilarious, because they're both like singing to each other, because we know Appu is DJ, Scratchmen Appu, check her out, and then Queen is in his Crank That Queen mode. So those interactions, it reminds me of like just Killer B and how he used to communicate to Naruto sometimes. So reading that was actually pretty funny. And in the midst of this, they're dropping a bunch of musical references, and while this is going on, Kid notices Appu. So Kid is like Appu, and he's thinking back to all the shit that happened with him and Appu, even since Sabaody. So now they notice it's Straw Hat Luffy and Roronoa Zoro. But before that, we get some important information from Queen. And Queen is saying that he plans to wipe out one of the Flying Six, and that means the seat will be up for grabs. So for me, and sometimes how I interpret things, I took this as, okay, have they found out about X Drake? Do they know who the traitor is? Is this a planned execution? Because that would be insane and actually pretty dope. Or it could be Queen just referencing what Who's Who and Sasaki planned on doing once they find Yamato challenging Queen. So that could just be it. However, Queen said somebody's going bye-bye today. And then it's a morale boost as well for everyone, because they're like, okay, now I have to show out and show why I'm worthy for that position. I like how some people are realistic, like, okay, we're non-gifters, we don't stand a chance, so let's just drink, right? Because that's realistic. Some people just aren't up for it because you guys just aren't strong enough, because you're kind of fodder, you're kind of ass, okay? It's not your fault. It's chance with like getting a smile and all that. So It's actually pretty fucking hilarious. So the title of the chapter, Fighting Music, it goes well into Appu's ability where he can use sound, and he manipulates that and he uses that to attack Zoro and Luffy, and it did a lot more damage than I expected. Like, of course, with Luffy having future sight, I don't expect Luffy to get caught off guard with certain things, but with this specific power, it's really clever in how Oda used Appu, because even if Luffy looked into the future, you don't know what's happening. You don't know the range of the sound waves, you don't know the point it's focused on. He didn't use it, right? From what we can tell. However, it's a really clever way for Oda to use Appu and in a way hype Appu for what happened at the end of the chapter. And even based on what happened at the end of the chapter, I'm not going to go off the deep end and say that Appu is stronger than Luffy and Zoro, because people had the same reaction when Hawkins did that versus Luffy and Zoro, where he had a moment and all of a sudden Hawkins was elevated, and the same is happening for Appu now. I think Appu deserves some credit, but he's not going to skyrocket for me. But it's very dope what he did. He did something similar in Sabaody to Kizaru, but it didn't hurt him. Here it hurt Luffy and Zoro, so you have to give him his credit. It was impressive, and I know I'm gonna hit check her out the entire weekend, the entire 2 weeks until we get a new chapter, but y'all, let's try to temper our expectations. I like the theme of misinformation with Kid's crew as well, because from Udon, where Caribou had this whole idea of what happened to Kid, and now with Zoro, he still think Kid is allied with Appu. It's like this stuff happening in stories, how the fan base feels about Kid, because I think the fan base is literally split on Kid, where some people feel like, okay, he has insane portrayal, so he's going to be strong. Some people are like, well, he hasn't actually done anything, he's taken a bunch of L's, so why do you guys keep hyping him? And out of nowhere, Appu attacks Zoro as well. And for Zoro, this could lead into a deeper conversation about just not seeing blades, but we'll save that. But he got attacked out of nowhere and he said, I can't see the blade. Like, where did this come from? And this goes back to Queen's personality as well, where he just enjoys a good show, because while Appu is doing all of this, he's like, yo, what's up, Luffy? What's up, Zoro? You guys supposed to be giving a good show. What's going on? Put up a better fight. Zoro then manages to grab Luffy and get away, but at the end of the chapter, Appu finally gets stonewalled. What the fuck does that mean? He finally gets attacked and taken down by Kid. I don't think that's the end of the fight, but this has been a long time coming. From betrayal to alliance to betrayal, Kid has been waiting for this. So I hope we get to see more of it. However, I don't know how Oda's gonna do this. There's so many groups Oda can pan to or go to in general that it's not surprising if Oda just moves away from all this action going on, because sometimes he just does that. He just moves away from the hype. This did make me happy though, because again, it's a different side of how Oda's been portraying Kid, in which Kid actually does something instead of saying he's gonna do something. It wouldn't make much sense if anyone else takes out Appu because of just the rivalry or just how things have been built up between Appu and Kid. Again, like I said, since Sabaody. There's also a meme going around about Kid, and it's him versus Kaido. I think Eric Tolato made it, one of the Red Force podcast guys, in which Kid, he's fighting Kaido. He's level 16, Kaido's level 100, and the only attack he has is Metal Claw. And that's kind of facts, because Kid, from what we've seen, he's used different variations of the same thing, where it's like, we're not too upset about that, because it's like Luffy using Gomu Gomu no pistol and Gomu Gomu no rifle. They're slightly different, but it's kind of like the same attack if you're just looking at it for the first time. But yeah, guys, that's about it. Give me your thoughts on the chapter. What did you think? What are your expectations for the next chapter? We're on break next week, so that's another thing we have to worry about. With COVID-19 going around, the announcement about One Piece possibly going on breaks, I think a lot of people speculated that it could be week to week or every other week, so that's what's happening here. The One Piece anime is on break indefinitely. I just saw Haikyuu got postponed. It's just so much going on with Corona. I hope people are staying safe in this time as well, because it's a lot going on. Stay home if you can, wash your hands, do all that stuff. It's crazy, right? But guys, let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about Appu now? I think I will definitely make a video on that as far as like my expectations for Appu and Wano are going forward, because how could you not talk about him, right? He is the star of this chapter. It's funny because I know a lot of people expect me to go in on Zoro and Luffy and them getting hurt by Appu, because that's how this community does. Like, one thing happens, then we either over exaggerate or overestimate someone else. I guess the word here is overhype, and we downplay someone else. I don't think that's the appropriate situation here. It's a lot of context in there with this. Appu has a devil fruit that it can catch you off guard, just like Law or Dofi catching you off guard. What's more important is how you bounce back, and we're going to see that next chapter, hopefully. So I'm not feeding into just destroying Zoro here. However, when the time is right, we may pull this out of the archives for our agenda. But for right now, no harm, no foul. I'm not going to feed into that. But again, give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD.ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Like and subscribe. Follow me on twitch.tv/BragoDAce as well. We will be streaming over there tonight, probably talking about the chapter as well. So again, like and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.